Red Dead Redemption 2 is not as perfect as everyone thinks. Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing game, but does it deserve a perfect score like so many reviewers have given? I don't think so. I feel like the only one sitting here after finishing the game thinking, this wasn't as fun or as perfect as I was led to believe. All I see is unanimous praise, memes littering the internet, people coming together in awe of this work of art. And I'm not here to burst that bubble. I want the internet united in their love for something, but I need to know if I'm truly alone here.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
So tell me below what you think. Be constructive and tell me why you think it's perfect or why it isn't. Before you smash that dislike button, hear me out. There are reasons why I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is not a perfect game. Let's start with the controls. When I brought this up to friends, they dismissed it, but they never denied it. The control scheme in Red Dead Redemption 2 is awful. Sometimes you loot with X, sometimes you loot with square, sometimes you loot with triangle. Why is it not just the same button no matter what you're looting? Tapping L1 takes out your weapon, but so does tapping R2. Triangle mounts your horse, but also strangles anyone nearby. When locked onto a person, your shoot button now just points your weapon at them instead. There are so many more examples, but this disconnect serves to break immersion for me. Even after 50 plus hours, I was not completely used to the controls. I am now, but I'm a 30-year-old hardcore gamer. It just feels clunky and sometimes unresponsive, which sucks some of the fun away from me. There is a clear priority of animations over your inputs. The game places playing out animations over what you select. There's been so many times where I brought up a wheel, selected a gun, for it to not happen because Arthur was in the middle of a whip animation. At critical moments, this can be incredibly frustrating, like when you get ambushed by bounty hunters and they're shooting at your fully bonded white Arabian horse you spent hours on. Rest in peace, Sarah. On that note, combat isn't as fun as it could be. In perfect situations where you move up on a group, get cover, start shooting, it's amazing and works brilliantly. But when you aren't ready for it, it's a clunky mess. Ideally, you'd press a button, pull out your guns and start shooting. However, if you're on a horse, like I mentioned before, it's a gamble if your guns come out quickly. Then you have to worry about the clunky animations and controls. If you have any Deadeye, you can try that, and you can try turning up aim assist, but then that has its own problems. You are meant to be a gunslinging badass, but it feels slower and stiffer than it should be. I understand some of the choices they made to make this game feel more weighty, and they do in sake of pushing realism, but having to reselect your loader every single time you get on and off your horse is also incredibly frustrating. That kind of thing should save. It feels like a lot of things are deliberately put in as a time sink. Holding buttons. Do we really need to hold buttons for everything? Every item menu, every task, I have to hold a button in. It would be fine, but after hundreds of hours, it really adds up. A simple, single tap would have worked just fine for, at the very least, menu items. And that one thing you would want to be able to hold a button for is not in. Horse riding. And I understand classic GTA had you spamming the button to run, it's historic, but having to tap X to a rhythm like this is some kind of horse running minigame gets very tedious, especially since the world is so massive. Yes, you can put on cinematic view, but I want to experience the world and not miss random events that come up. I don't want to give up control to the camera. If that's the ideal way, then they should have included a map-initiated fast travel like every single modern open world game. The world is too big for it not to be included. It should be there, and if players don't want to use it, they can opt not to. Rockstar completely denying us this option is a way of saying, we know best for you. This is not a game you can sit down and play for a little bit of time. You need to put aside a lot of time with each sitting because of these issues. Now, I understand why they did it, but in their pursuit of realism, they've sucked me out of the game. Now, what breaks me even more is the UI, the user interface. Everything is clunky and unnecessarily difficult to do. I didn't even know there was a save menu until I stumbled across it 10 hours in. For those who don't know, it's in the start menu, story, and then save. Why is there no quest log on demand? I remember doing a quest where I had to hunt down famous gunslingers. I did the whole thing, but after finding them all, I couldn't for the life of me find where to hand in the quest. The quest giver had disappeared. There was no log of the quest anywhere to tell me what to do next. I had to resort to Google. It was then I realized you need to be in chapter 4 to hand it in to find the quest giver again. The game should have told me that. It would have been easily solved by letting me check a list of quests and their progress. It's not unrealistic either. Arthur can pull out a book where he has taken notes like his journal, but actually useful, not just pictures of rabbits. So I wasted all this time and resources on a task there was no point doing just yet, especially since you're gold starved at the start of the game. Then we have the satchel, your inventory. There will be plenty of times you're skinning an animal only for it to say your satchel is full so you can't pick up everything. Check your satchel and there's no numbers telling you the space you have left or even have. A simple 5 slot out of 5 used would suffice, but no. So you clear it out, it doesn't matter. The parts you couldn't collect before have disappeared forever. So if you don't have room, which you have to guess with because the game doesn't tell you, you lose loot permanently, if you're foolish enough not to empty beforehand. So there is another mundane, boring task you have to do, a task that could be removed if the game was simply more streamlined. Over the years of developing video games, developers have streamlined these processes. People complained about how clunky Fallout 4's menu felt when the game was released, but Fallout 4's menu is a breath of fresh air compared to Red Dead Redemption 2. It feels to me like the controls and the UI have taken a step backwards, and I don't like the extra busy work it creates. The game is already big enough. I shouldn't struggle to find what I need, waste time on things that aren't fun to do, or straight up not know about things. The game doesn't tell you a lot. I know overloading you would be a mistake, but getting tens of hours into the game and still not knowing why you should be stocking up your camp with supplies is not ideal. This is one example of many. It's because the game does something so well, other things that they don't do so well start to stand out. Another example, why does the game react so negatively to things you do, but every NPC gets a free pass? I was just handing in some pelts at the tanner. A man runs into me, falls to the ground, and now I have a bounty for disturbing the peace on my head. In another situation, a shootout was happening in front of a lawman who ignores it. A bullet hits me, so I shoot back. Bam, bounty on me. I'm sure after all the miraculous things they've accomplished in the game, a dynamic bounty system that applies to others as well isn't too much to ask for. And now the story. The developers have made a crazy good story, but it's a prequel, so there's already less narrative weight naturally. You know what's going to happen to everyone there, and I find myself caring just a little bit less. That's a problem with prequels though, and not the game specifically, but what does suffer is the pacing. The opening act is, like a better word, slow and, well, boring at times. In Act 2, the world opens up, but it's slow to get around and you can't quick travel from the base yet. Most things aren't explained, so you're left to discover them yourself, so most people will opt to do that. This sinks a lot more time. I was 20 hours in before I started really hammering story quests. You need around $600 to unlock fast travel at your base, and that much money isn't easy to find at the start of the game. One of the early quests has you breaking out one of your gang members from jail, which puts a $300 bounty on your head. Well, there goes my savings. Let's slow the game down further. Then, much later on, money becomes a non-issue and you have too much to spend. I feel like they could have evened it out a little better. Now, a lot of the points I raise go a long way to make me feel like I'm having less fun in the game, but another is how the game is tuned to need micromanaging. You're always managing one meter or another, always needing to stop what I'm doing to do some mundane task. It's meant to be something that increases immersion, but all it does is pull me out. I'm too hot, too cold, too hungry, too tired, too dirty, too poor, too wanted, too over-encumbered. The horse is too hungry, too tired, too dirty, too scared, too over-encumbered. My camp is too hungry, too sick, too undefended, too poor, too unable to do anything for themselves after I hunted dinner, gave the camp $100 and chopped wood for them. Look, I get it. I really do. I understand why it's all there, but after a long day, I want to play something that takes me to a fantasy, not makes me do chores for hours. Sometimes chores can be relaxing and therapeutic if done right. Look at Minecraft. Hell, even games like Stardew Valley, which is a chore sim. Red Dead Redemption 2 doesn't do them right. Chores feel like chores. Clunky chores. Go to a clunky menu, do something clunky. Press a button at the right time, travel for 15 minutes to get back to do something else clunky. travel for 15 minutes again in a different direction. I know it sounds like I'm just bitching about little things in the game, but it's a lot of little things that I feel no one else has brought up that should be obvious. It's not one glaring massive issue you can just paint with broad strokes and highlight it to the world. It's a lot of little things. Little things matter, they add up. To me, I felt like I was having less fun than I would have otherwise because of these. I still very much enjoyed the game. It's an incredible game and Rockstar should be commended. I would give it a 9.5 out of 10. Though I think saying it's perfect, 10 out of 10 without addressing its issues paints a bad precedent. It's dangerous. I understand reviewers were in their honeymoon stage when they played it, needed to rush out reviews in their limited window, but now it's time to really think. Do we want this kind of control scheme in future games? Do we want this kind of UI in other games? Do we need this clunkiness? Do we have hundreds of hours to spend on mundane tasks in every game? Well, let's not ignore it. Games have had points taken off for less. Too much water. All the issues I've raised are something not hard to address, and I highly doubt Rockstar didn't put countless hours into each area, so there must be a reason for them. Control schemes can be changed, UI can be updated, and numbers can be tuned, so I just don't understand how it's all so easily forgiven and ignored. Now, all those who want to white knight Rockstar, I understand. You love them, you love the game, it's not a problem to you, or you like it the way it is. Maybe it's just me, maybe I'm wrong. Answer me this though, would you like the game any less if the menu was changed to be clearer? If the controls were updated to be more consistent and responsive? Am I insane? Tell me below. Have I just grown cynical? Have I taken too many bites of the stupid steak and have no idea what I'm talking about? I'm sure you can dismantle everything I've said in some way, but know this. I wrote the entire script for this video while I was waiting for my horse to run from Valentine to St. Denis. That's not very interactive gameplay now, is it?